All right, welcome everybody. My name is Mark Adamski, and I am the Director of Marketing for Wellwright, as well as the host of your webinar today. We're glad to have you guys along. I want to get to the main event right away, but two quick housekeeping items. The first being you'll be able to answer or ask questions in the chat window, so feel free to do that while the presenters are speaking, and we'll address them at the end of the 30-minute portion of the webinar. And then item number two is we're going to record this, so we'll make it available, and a follow-up email with a link to the recording will be sent out to you later after the webinar. So let's get going. We have two presenters today, and I'm going to introduce them in reverse order because why not? The first person I want to introduce is Tad Mitchell. He is the president of Wellwright, and at the end of the main presentation, he's going to take 3 minutes and share how our wellness program helps organizations challenge their employees to identify their purpose in the workplace. On that note, Wellwright is continually looking for innovative ways to go beyond the step counting and cut out junk food approach to wellness. So when we were connected with today's main presenter, Scott Wilhite, it seemed like a natural fit to work together. Scott is the founder of Encourage.life, which is something I'd label as a hybrid consultancy coaching firm that helps people lead a more positive and happy lifestyle. He's spent years crafting a proven methodology that he'll be sharing with us. So let's get to that now. Welcome, Scott. It's great to have you here.
Hey, thank you so much, Mark. I'm excited to be here, and thank you everyone for joining us. We're going to jump right in so that you get lots of value out of this. And if you don't mind, in the chat window, if you could tell us where you're joining us from today and kind of what your primary role is in your company. We want this to be incredibly valuable for you. So, with us knowing what your role is, will make this meaningful for you. While you're doing that, let me introduce myself. I am the creator of the Feed Your Happy app and the best-selling author of the 7 Core Skills of Everyday Happiness, scientifically proven skills for a happier, more meaningful life. I'm also a filmmaker, a writer, producer, director. I'm a husband, a father, a social entrepreneur, an executive coach, and I am a guy who struggled for years and years, floundering through life because I felt like I had a personal purpose that I wasn't fulfilling, and it ate away at me. In fact, it chewed me up so much that I began some self-destructive patterns that impacted my health. It soured my relationships, and it jeopardized my employment. So as we talk, you may think of some of your employees and how they could be in the same boat. And hopefully the things that we have to share will be incredibly useful to you as you strive to hold on to some of your star performers. And I'm partnering with Wellwright today because I help people put systems into place for happy, healthy thinking. So basically, I help people reverse engineer a life that matters. So since we've only got about 30 minutes, let's jump right into the meat of the situation. And we're really going to talk about business here. I know that a lot of you are coming from the wellness side, and we're going to mix wellness. Specifically, we're going to mix, the emotional, mental wellness side with the financial side of things. Because money is really the lifeblood of a company, and most people don't realize how much their unhealthy thinking is costing their company. So let's paint a picture here. Are your employees anxious or stressed? Are you having problems with absenteeism, or what could be even worse sometimes when they show up but they're not really present? Are they disengaged? Are you paying the price for family issues, or constantly paying to retrain employees with a high turnover rate? So on a scale of 1 to 10, and 0 to 10, 0 being not at all and 10 being all the time, how much does this impact your work, the work that you do, and add to your daily workload? Add that into the chat message and let us know. I love talking to CEOs and CFOs because they always seem to have a number. They can tell me either a specific percentage or in millions of dollars how much attrition is costing them. So here are some other numbers that may interest you. Gallup reports that 70% of American workers are disengaged, and 20% of those are actively disengaged, which means that they are deliberately working against you. 80% of Americans report at least one health symptom related to stress. And it's been estimated that 60 to 90% of all visits to primary care physicians are stress-related problems. So, you know, this is pain that you're paying for. You know, the interesting part about pain is that it doesn't tell you where the problem is. It simply acts as a warning sign that something's not right. And my chiropractor was the one that taught me that. I remember I came into him with this terrible pain in my shoulders, and oh, it hurt so bad. And he laid me down on his bed thing, and then he starts working on my feet. And I'm like, hey, doc, the pain's up here. But he pointed out to me how the body is an entire system. It's a whole system. And so often the pain will tell us something is wrong, but it won't tell us exactly where it is. And that's kind of one of the things that that's going on with us and with the turnover. Sometimes it tells you that there's a problem, but it doesn't specifically tell you where that problem is. And here's another story that will kind of reframe that. This is my rust in the carburetor story. And so years ago, many years ago, when my wife and I were first married, we had this little Honda, and it was a great car, very reliable. And then it started developing these issues. And what would happen is when we'd pull up to a stop, or you know, at a stoplight, it would start to stutter and stall. And it really freaked me out. You know, so you kind of had to, and it was a manual transmission, so you had to keep one foot on the gas and one on the brake, and one on, you know, kind of jostle between where the clutch was. Well, I took the car in because I didn't want anything to happen to my new bride, and the mechanics were happy to work on it, and they found that there were little tiny bits of rust in there that were getting into the carburetor and clogging it up. I mean, just little tiny things, the things that you wouldn't think would matter. Well, I paid the $250, which was an astronomical fee for me at that time, being a poor college student, and drove it, and it was great for about 2 weeks. And then the problem returned. So I took it back to them, and I was kind of furious because here I was, I'd paid to have the problem fixed, and it's back. And they went in and they took the carburetor apart, and sure enough, there were tiny bits of rust in there. And so they told me they fixed it. And I said, well, wait a second, where is the rust coming from? Well, then they did some more searching, and they found that it was coming from the gas tank. So it was completely in a totally different area, but it was coming through, and they wanted me to pay for it time and time and time again, and it wasn't helping to really solve the problem. So that's really what happens with us. You know, when we have dissatisfied employees, you know, it can wreak havoc on the profitability of your company. You know, and you know, where the mechanics were just perfectly fine to work on what they considered the problem, it wasn't the real issue. So, you know, to actually solve the issue, we have to go to the source of the problem, and a lot of time that's not anywhere near where the trouble appears to be. So you may be experiencing the same issues, you know, with your employees, and free snacks, or you know, in the break room, or flex time, or stock options, or even a company sponsored weight room, you know, complete with a masseuse and fresh towels, may not solve it. So let's get to the root of the problem, the gas tank of your company, so to speak. I've been watching the trends with employee quit rates, and if you've paid attention to these, it's really staggering. Last year, the U.S. News and World Report said that the number of Americans who quit their job in August climbed to the second highest level since before the Great Recession. The Bureau of Labor Statistics reported that more than 2.98 million workers voluntarily left their positions in August, and by January of this year, that was up to 3.2 million. And here's kind of a rough-looking graph from the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, and it's pretty easy to spot the trends. This is the quit rates that goes from 2007 all the way to 2017. So now the question is, are employees leaving you because they're not satisfied with their jobs, or because they're not satisfied with life? You know, think about it. You can see the period where the quit rates, you know, where they drop down, and where you know, and that's really where people were afraid, where they were afraid that if they quit, they wouldn't have anywhere else to go. But after jobs became more plentiful, they started looking for something else. Well, let's think about what that something else could be. Now, if you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the first thing that people need, which is at the base level of that, is food and water, safety and security. Well, in 2009, 2010, your employees were worried that if they left, those needs would not be met. They were paralyzed with fear, basically, so they stayed in their jobs. They were content, sort of, as they focused on those basic needs, but now that they've got more confidence, they are looking for their psychological needs to be met. And if you look on there, they want to belong, they want to feel accomplished, and they want to feel fulfilled. In 2012, a study by Net Impact showed that 72% of college students and 59% of employed adults picked meaningful work as something that was what they really wanted in life. And in other words, that's work that makes a difference or has a positive social impact. And this is one of their most important goals in life. And it's important to know that meaningful work was considered more important by those surveyed than children, a prestigious career, wealth, and leadership. The only things that came above that were financial security and marriage. So I will repeat those needs again. They want to belong, they want to feel accomplished, and they want to feel fulfilled. They want a purposeful life, a meaningful life. So the question for you is, do your employees feel like their lives matter? Well, let me tell you a story. This is Jesse's story. I met him just a few weeks ago. He is a recovering drug addict. He's a convicted felon. He's basically homeless. And he was hooked on drugs since he was a child. And the road to recovery was not an easy one. But eventually, he got himself to where he wasn't hooked on the drugs. And he had a space of time where he was free from that. And he went looking for a job and couldn't find a job anywhere. He joked with me as we talked. He says, Baskin Robbins always finds out. I guess that's a long-running joke that is true. But people looked at his record. They looked that he was a recovering drug addict. They looked at his felony record, and they wouldn't hire him. So he started doing construction. Started his own little construction and began to be pretty successful. And as he got more and more successful, he started hiring more and more people. Well, the people that he wanted to hire were people like him, recovering drug addicts, people with a record, people who were bouncing back in life. And he said it just filled him with purpose. Suddenly he had meaning to his life. He was there to help others like him, and it filled him with such joy. Well, it didn't turn out so great. During one of his construction things, he was moving one of those big granite countertops, and he twisted and just blew out his back. Just absolutely blew it out. Had to go to surgery, and didn't have money. Didn't have money to pay the bills. Didn't have money to pay his rent, and really was losing everything. And he had to sell his truck and his trailer. And through kind of this miraculous, fortunate experience, he got a new job by a guy who heard about his situation and had some mercy on him. And the job was kind of a clerical one that he could do while he was on his back, and he could be, doing data entry for the guy. And suddenly he had a job, he had somebody that trusted him, and he was kind of building his steam back. Well, everything was going great until his 41st friend OD'd and died, and it completely threw him. And at that point, he realized he had no purpose to his life. Sure, he was able to make enough money for himself, but he was only living for himself. His life had no value to anyone else. He wasn't making a contribution. He wasn't important or socially useful. He was merely existing. And he remembered how it felt when he had that construction company and when he was able to offer jobs to other unemployable recovering addicts and convicts. And he needed this. And he needed this more than he needed his ability to breathe. He needed a sense of purpose. He needed to make his contribution and to feel socially useful. So what did he do? Well, even though he was completely unemployable, and even though he had nothing to hold on to but this job that he had mercifully been given, he told his boss that he needed to quit. He needed to quit because he wasn't living his purpose. He wasn't helping other, people like him. And I found that was amazing. His drive, his need to belong, to feel accomplished, and to feel fulfilled was more important to him than his safety and his security. You know, is more important than his ability to get food, water, and shelter. You know, that is powerful stuff. I will tell you a little bit about the continuation of the story. I'm happy to report his boss did not let him quit. He instead provided him with a way to fulfill his purpose within the framework of his daily employment. And you can do this too. You have this opportunity. You know, your employees are craving purpose. They're yearning for this feeling of belonging or making a contribution, of feeling like their lives matter. And they can either feel like they're making a social difference inside of your organization, or they can and will go looking for it outside. So if you're smart, you can help them do this while staying employed with you. They don't need to look, they don't need to leave and look for their own stuff. They don't need to start their own nonprofit. You know, they can volunteer at the YWCA, they can write a book, they can speak on stage, they can train others. They can write music, they can mentor, create, contribute, serve, solve problems, explore, direct, and guide. There are so many opportunities where people can share their gift. Mark Twain said it well. He said the two most important days of your life are the day you were born and the day you find out why. And for everyone, their purpose is going to be different. And your purpose it's this core part of your identity. It's like your compass, but it's so personal that it will only guide you and not others. And it will only serve to guide you, and you have to choose to follow it. Viktor Frankl, who survived the horrors of the Nazi concentration camps, he went on to become a famous psychologist and author of the best-selling book, Man's Search for Meaning. He had this to say about finding your purpose. He said, one should not search for an abstract meaning of life. Everyone has his own specific vocation or mission in life to carry out a concrete assignment which demands fulfillment. Therein he cannot be replaced, nor can his life be repeated. Thus, everyone's task is as unique as his specific opportunity to implement it. Well, what if that were true? What if each of us has a specific purpose in life, a unique contribution to make? And what if the discord we feel in life is because we either haven't found our purpose or we're not sure how to fulfill it? Well, there's an opportunity. Now, in relation to purposeful living, here are some health-related benefits that may interest you. First of all, purpose is capable of reducing body inflammation. It diminishes stress levels and improves immune functions. This is according to Barbara Fredrickson, a researcher. They also did a 7-year study, and they revealed that those reported a higher sense of purpose were 2.4 times more likely to remain free of Alzheimer's disease than those who reported a lower sense of purpose. Purpose is closely tied to happiness. And those who feel that they are needed, that they are making a contribution to society, and who feel incredibly useful are happier. And according to the research, happier people are more productive. They're more creative. They're better team leaders. They make better negotiators. They take less sick days. They're more resilient. They recover faster from injuries, make more money, and are more likely to get a raise. What's most interesting is that you can influence these factors. Happiness, having a greater sense of purpose. There are activities and interventions and systems that you can put in place to increase these. So you want to increase sales? Adam Grant is a professor at Wharton School of Business, and he conducted an experiment. He divided a team of salespeople into 3 groups. He had the missionary group, the mercenary group, and the ever-popular control group, which it comes up in every solid scientific experiment. Well, the missionary group, before they went and did their jobs, they read these stories about how the services that were offered by the company, had made a real difference in the customers' lives. The mercenary group, before they made their calls, they read stories about how salespeople in the same job had personally benefited financially from increasing their skills. And the control group, well, they listened to these unrelated stories. And in the end, the mercenary and the control groups didn't improve their skills, but the missionary group doubled their sales. By being clear about the positive social impact that they were making with their products and their services, this group's effectiveness radically improved. Other people matter. And when your employees feel like their lives have value, performance improves, and their desire to leave your company and to find personal fulfillment elsewhere diminishes. Margaret Atwood said, what am I living for and what am I dying for are the same question. So how is this resonating with you? You know, on a scale from 0 to 10, with 0 being not at all, you know, to 10 being, holy cow, this is what we've been missing. You know, tell me how big of a priority this is for you to inspire your employees to find and fulfill their personal life's purpose. And while you're doing that, let me tell you one more story. I know a man who loves hunting. And I mean, he has an incredible passion for it. He's also a talented engineer. Well, years ago, he started his own firm hoping to make lots of money so he could retire and pursue his passion for hunting. It was his reason for living, you know, and it was a little bit selfish, and I do have to explain selfish. That's not like a judgmental call. It's just that it was only benefiting himself. But his wife got him to go on a humanitarian trip, and they went to Ethiopia, them and their kids, and they went to help other people, and they packed these backpacks full of school supplies and bandages and all sorts of things to help, and spent 2 weeks there doing the greatest difference that they could. Well, he got hooked. He loved it. He loved the feeling that it gave him. He loved the purpose that it gave him, and he began to involve his family and his employees. And now he is so full of life. He can't stop working because it fuels his ability to help others. You know, he still loves hunting, but now he is flourishing in all aspects of his life. His business is taken off. He has this crystal clear purpose, and he's making his contribution. And really, everyone around him benefits daily. So if you want to thrive, or you want your employees to thrive, look into their power of purpose. You know, figure out what it is that really makes them come alive. And as Zig Ziglar said, you will get all you want in life if you help enough people get what they want. So remember, your employees have this need to belong. They want to feel accomplished. They want to feel like they are making their unique contributions, and they want to feel fulfilled. They want to feel like their lives matter. So if what I've shared with you today resonates with you, and if you'd like to set up a strategy session, you know, either for your company or your management team, or for you personally, feel free to reach out to me at scott@encourage.life. And I do get a ton of emails, so make sure that in the subject line you write the word strategy session, and we can talk about what your visions are, you know, what's slowing you down from accomplishing these visions, and we can discuss systems that you can put in place to tap into the power of purpose and reverse engineer a meaningful life. It really is amazing how many systems and methods are out there to help people find and fulfill what makes them come alive. And if you want to stick around, we will have a Q&A if you have any specific questions that you would like to get answered right now. But thank you very much for your time. I wanted to give Tad enough time to be able to talk about what they are doing at Wellright. So I will turn things over to you, Tad, and to wrap things up.
Great, thanks for that, Scott. I haven't seen the Maslow's pyramid since undergrad days, so that aged me a bit. But let me flip up a quick slide so Tad can tell a little bit about what we're doing over here at Wellright, and we're going in a second on that.
Okay, so I'll just be a couple minutes here, and then we'll get back to Scott for some questions. You know, with all this, there's actually a lot of purpose talk going on lately. I've been to a lot of conferences, and it seems like every conference, every wellness conference I go to, there's actually a keynote on purpose. There's a lot of books on purpose, and I think with a lot of good reason. And so we're very excited to have Scott here with us today. What I want to do today, instead of like going through our whole product, is really just announce a new feature that we'll be adding to our wellness suite. Coming up this August, which really revolves around purpose. We're going to add some questions to our assessment, our health assessment, that will address all the areas. So if you look at the head down there, the purpose head, it's going to address all those areas: the emotional, occupational, physical, social, and financial. But notice how purpose is in the middle. Purpose is so important. You know, we go into something and we say, oh, well, we're going to help make you financially well. Well, it's not going to work unless somebody has a purpose that they want to be financially well. And the same thing is with physical wellness or doing well in your career. And so really got to start where it counts and go back and find out your purpose. And then once you have a purpose, everything else in your life will fall together. And so in the assessment, it'll assess all these different areas. It will give them some sort of indication how they're doing, red, yellow, green. We're also going to introduce a challenge called Mission Possible, where people write a personal mission statement. And then we're bundling in with our product life coaches. So not just health coaches, but life coaches that can help people pretty much work on whatever they want to work on, whatever they feel is what they need to work on next to accomplish their purposes in life. And so, and time frame is about the August time frame, and we're just really, really excited here at Wellright to get that next release out and start working more around purpose and helping people find themselves and their purpose, and basically helping them become better employees, better spouses, better people in general, and enjoying their life more. So let's switch back over to Scott and ask him some questions.
Great, thanks, Ted. All right, so we had a couple of questions trickle in. The first one being, what are 1 to 2 small steps you've seen organizations take in starting to create a culture of purpose?
You know, and that is a great question, because so often, you know, there are small things that we can do, and they make a profound difference. You know, so often employees feel like, you know, with culture and things that it's show up, do your work, and go home, and answer your phone on the weekends and your emails, and we just get this highly connected society where, you know, work comes before everything else. And that, just whether we say it or not, that's kind of the feeling that everyone gets through society and through culture. But there are some companies that are doing some great things that will require, not require, that's not a good way to say it, but they will give opportunities for their employees to do outside service work. There's a company here in Utah that does a lot of service and has their employees kind of register how many things that they've done, and they get points for how many service opportunities that they've taken advantage of, and it is actually part of their daily job or their weekly, you know, allotment of things that they can do. And so they find different places to volunteer. I know that Zappos, I've done a bunch of work with Zappos down in Las Vegas. They sponsor sections of the highway, and they will have their employees go out and clean those sections. Or they had a great thing not too long ago where they gave shoes to the homeless, and they had all of their employees come together to actually distribute the shoes for the people. And so by helping involve them in opportunities to connect with other people, to be able to see how they were making a difference, it helped them tremendously. So, you know, it's just those little cultural shifts of helping people realize that it's not just your daily workload that's important, but it's how you contribute to society, and giving people an opportunity to do that. If you want bigger ways to do that, I know that Google has done an amazing job to where they have, and I can't remember what they call it, but they have this time set aside each week where you could work, and it's a big percentage of their time too. It's like 30% of their time, where you can work on projects that were unrelated to what your job is. And so you get to kind of cross-pollinate and take your skills and apply them to a new opportunity, or if you have some new ideas that you want to pursue, you're given time and opportunity to do that. But it really helps, you know, helps people feel like what they do matters, their ideas matter, their contribution matters, and not just showing up, you know, being in your seat and doing your work.
Okay, great. Next one, what are some ways, like questionnaires or even specific questions, for example, would you ask employees to help them find their purpose?
That's a good question. You know, so often finding your purpose is an exploration. It doesn't happen all at once. It doesn't happen really quick, but you know, through, you know, introspection, you're really able to find some of these things. You know, some good questions are, you know, how do people see me differently than I see myself? You know, a lot of times, you know, we get caught in how we we just perceive ourselves and we don't, see other opportunities. You can think about in what areas of life am I settling, or what do I want my life to be like in 5 years? What would I do if I wasn't scared? This gives people opportunities to break through kind of some of the mental cataracts that have been holding them back. You can talk about, a great question is what important lessons have you learned in your life? So often people will find their personal purpose through the big trials and the challenges that they've had. When I told you about Jesse's story, his purpose came out of his trials, out of being a recovering drug addict and not being able to get a job and feeling unemployable. And so he wanted to help other people who were in the very same boat. Often people will experience those things, but they see their past as something tainted, something to be ashamed of, something to hide from. But once we own it, once we realize that these things were there to give us lesson, to teach us things, suddenly, we're able to have more power in helping other people who are on the same road. So when I work with people, that's one of the ways that I really help them reverse engineer this meaningful life, is look through your life. Look what has been stopping you or slowing you down. Look where your challenges have been. Look what you've overcome. And in there, you are often able to find your gift or your talent, that you're able to make a contribution to others. And then one really great question that is just universal, you can ask anybody. And that is, if you were totally free to do whatever you wanted, what would you do? That gives people an opportunity to really think, if money wasn't an issue, if time wasn't an issue, what would you want to contribute? What would you want your legacy to be? And, when you get people thinking on that, which is really kind of fun, a lot of times they get excited about it. And if the thing that's holding them back is time and money, well, what can you start with the time and money that you have right now? And by doing, small things, we're able to begin to follow, our path to purpose and experience, great energy and vitality in life.
Great. We've got a couple more questions here, so I'd like to get to them.
Yeah.
So we still have a good amount of people hanging out to listen, so that's good. We got an idea of somebody who's interested in seeing how this could work with something on a large scale, like a large employer group, right? And so that is indeed interesting. And I think maybe to take that a step further, if I may, I feel like, is there a way to measure? Because obviously if you have a large group, you need to have some type of measurement to see if it's working. How would you go about working with a humongous group and trying to culturally change them? I mean, it seems like a big daunting task.
It is a daunting task, and there are some baseline surveys that you can take. There's some amazing research that's come out in the last 20 years, this field called positive psychology, and it's led by Harvard and Stanford and UCal Berkeley and the University of Pennsylvania. And what they've done is they've studied the happiest, most resilient people out there. And they have a bunch of surveys that if you'd like to tap into, you can use these to kind of find out where the company's at, and then use them in 6 months or a year after your interventions to see the difference that it's made. Okay. But as far as what are, actual, step-by-step kinds of things, there are amazing exercises and interventions that you could put in place to help people work on these step-by-step. So we mentioned it at the beginning, I'm the creator of the Feed Your Happy app. And it's a really cool tool that helps you mentally condition yourself bit by bit, day by day, taking happiness as a skill, taking a skills-based approach to improving your gratitude, your appreciation levels, your abilities to get outside of yourself and serve others, to work on mental detox skills. And really, anyway, it helps you kind of systematically take an approach to being in charge of your life. And anyway, there are things like that. I've got an online course that helps people, 10 minutes a day, work on their mental or emotional state in a way, again, where you're building up these skills that will help you when life doesn't go right, because it doesn't always. But anyway, there are a lot of exercises and interventions that you could do. And the main thing that I would say, in whatever you build into your culture, whatever you build into your human resources offerings, is just make sure that consistency, and you want it to be consistent, you want there to be repetition, so that you can work on this over and over again. Because a lot of times people will get a buzz, they'll get a good feeling that comes and then it's gone, you know, pretty quick. But if you're working at this repetitively in a way that you can turn it into more of a lifestyle, that's when you're going to experience the great change. So in whatever system you put in place, and there's a lot, and if anybody wants to reach out, we can talk offline on that. But these things will help people through consistency and repetition develop a lifestyle that will help them be resilient, really.
Okay. Putting on our HR hat for a moment, we've got two somewhat related questions. One is, is this something you'd want to integrate with like annual performance reviews? And two, do you promote any personality testing or work style communication assessments so companies can better communicate with their employees? So related, but not.
Yeah. In answer to the second one, the personality questions, I don't personally use that. I know that there are other groups that do, and I know that one quite effective one, I'm trying to remember what it's called, but basically it's your strengths assessment. And so rather than focusing on what's wrong with you or where you're deficient, you focus on where you're really good. And if you think about the movie Moneyball, that's a great example where they found out where people were really strong, whether it was pitching or hitting or getting on base or getting a hit, and they amplified those. So yeah, I think it's called a strengths assessment. Anyway, I can't remember exactly what that's called, but you can use those kinds of things to help and implement. Now, Mark, will you remind me, the first question was
including
about
like performance reviews. So like
performance reviews.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, is the question on that about do we add accountability into this, or what is? I
think it's just, is it a good idea to build this concept into the yearly evaluation, right? Like, is it a good idea to even dabble with that versus like, no, purpose is purpose, and let's just make it, kind of unravel, or, when you think about the nature of an employee evaluation, it can be, for better or for worse, somewhat negative sometimes. So, how much do you want to put this on a pedestal, I guess, right?
Okay. Well, I will give you my opinion on this. About the only people who really talk about mindset and talk about whether you are having healthy or not healthy, constructive or non-constructive thoughts, about the only people are like self-development people or religious people. and if you look at religions, I mean, they're doing some nice stuff. And actually, first of all, I'll back up. Generally, we don't think about what we think about at all, because we don't want to be limited by anything. We don't want to be imposed by anything. But really, we are being conditioned all the time to think certain ways. And we don't do anything to deliberately be in charge of our thoughts, to be the masters of our thoughts and not just controlled by them. And about the only groups that are doing that are like religions. And even them, they kind of do it wrong, because they will use the word should in there to where it's imposed. You need to do this, you should do this. And it takes choice out of the equation. And choice is really the key to all of this. You gotta wanna. You have to want to change. You have to want to have a purpose in your life. You have to want to pursue happiness in your path and in your way of doing this. And so when I work with people, I don't speak in terms of good and bad or right and wrong. I speak in terms of what's healthy and what's not healthy thinking, or what's constructive or not constructive. So when I'm working with people to help them overcome confidence issues, or when they've got fear or limiting beliefs, we can find truth in both sides of the equation, both things that they're thinking. Are you confident? Well, yes, because I did this and this. Are you fearful? Yes, because, this and this and this and this, really makes me afraid. But by helping people realize they have a choice, both of them are true, both of them are false, but which one is healthy and which one is not. And so when people have the opportunity to feel like they're making their own choice, when they have and that it's tied to healthy or not healthy thinking, it's a lot more constructive. When it becomes imposed, when it becomes part of performance review, that's when you're starting to dabble in the should and shouldn'ts, and then people get stuck in that victim mode. They are a victim of the system, they're a victim of their weight, they're a victim, all these other things that will make them spiral down, because they just get stuck in that feeling that they don't have any control, that there's nothing that they can do about it. So, I mean, I absolutely want it to be part of a company culture, but I think putting it into a performance review kind of thing, at least in a punishment sort of way, the way that typically the reviews often go, could serve to be a little bit more destructive than you'd like.
Great. So we have one more question, and this one is for Tad, actually. Tad, what do you do to promote this sense of purpose with your direct reports, i.e. me? This would be really interesting to know.
Well, what I talked about with the system, we're actually piloting that right now. One of the things I did, we've had a mission for a while, but I got the company mission on the wall, which has been handy. I think people have referred to that. When purpose comes up about themselves, they actually start talking about, well, what's the company mission? And then it helps them put a personal mission in place. So like I said, with our program, what we're doing now is everybody is tasked with, or at least invited to, create a personal mission statement, to take this assessment to see where they stand, and then reach out to a life coach. The life coach is voluntary. The whole thing's voluntary. And anyway, right now, I guess we're just getting started, and we'll see. But that's a very good question. And hopefully, more to come in future webinars, and as we roll this feature out and learn more about it.
Great. So that winds up the question and answer, and actually the webinar. So I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Tad. I hope everybody had a good takeaway from this, and look forward to seeing you on the next webinar. Have a great rest of your Tuesday and a great holiday weekend coming up. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.